بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless this gathering, to shower upon us with His mercy, to reward you all for tuning in and joining. Jazakumullahu khairan wa baraka fikum. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect you all and protect our families and our communities. Ameen Allahumma ameen. In this night, in our Friday night lecture, we are blessed to have an older brother, a shaykh, a mentor, a teacher. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be pleased with him and accept all of his efforts. Our dear shaykh, Dr. Ma'an AlQudah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward him for joining us, for giving us some time. He's very busy. And the sad thing is that he was here in Michigan. And subhanAllah, we didn't take advantage of his teachings and guidance. May Allah forgive us for that. But at least we're blessed to have him virtually. Dr. Ma'an AlQudah is a member, founding member, and president of Guidance University. MashaAllah, all the good that Guidance University, Jami'atul Huda, is doing for our community. He has traveled through Jordan, Egypt, and Saudi seeking knowledge. MashaAllah, he has his PhD, and he's also specialized in Islamic finance. It's very important for us to speak to those who have specialized in these matters, people that are able to address your concerns, answer your questions, and I believe that we have one of the most qualified people, mashallah. Generally speaking, we believe that he's one of the most learned scholars here in America, let alone this specialty, mashallah. He's known to be specialized in this, sharing his information. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be pleased with him. And as all of you know, for those just living in America, regardless, you don't have to be a business person or a person that has a lot of business transactions. Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu anhu made it very clear, لا يبيع في سوقنا من لم يتفقه في الدين. That if someone is trying to navigate through these challenges and he or she are trying to make business decisions, whatever decisions they be making, there has to be some fiqh involved. And alhamdulillah, we have a shaykh that will guide us through the process, and also Dr. Ma'an will be with us next Friday also, inshallah, between 7 and 8, if we can. If you can help me to welcome our dear Shaykh, Dr. Ma'an AlQudah. Assalamu alaikum, Shaykhana.
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ahlan wa sahlan, marhaban.
Always good to see you. We miss you. And we regret that you left us to Houston. May Allah guide us and guide you back to us.
Jazakallah khair, akhi. Barakallah feek. Allah yakram.
How has COVID been with you? Has it had a positive effect, or have you struggled with it?
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. As you know, everybody is staying home, just to try to be as protected as possible. However, nothing can change Allah as well. Take all the possible measures for our safety, for our security. But at the end of the day, it's Allah's will. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep us all protected and alleviate this hardship from the community at large. Everybody subhanAllah is struggling nowadays in all aspects, socially, financially. Millions of people have lost their jobs, and everybody is just waiting for the near future. The uncertainty is still there, especially nowadays with the presidential election.
Yeah.
So everybody is waiting, look forward, inshallah, for a brighter future, inshallah, for the society.
Inshallah, inshallah. Have you been more busier with quarantine? Because a lot of people think that Zoom is far more easier than going out. How has this affected your schedule?
Wallahi, yes, more busier virtually online. Number of lectures and seminars I've been holding has been increased rapidly because everybody just staying home. And mashallah, it's a very good sign that the masajid and the Islamic centers actually they do care about their communities, and they keep gathering them virtually instead of physically in the actual masjid, at least virtually with different programs and activities. I mean, just to keep the spirit of the community and the jama'ah and the masjid which is something good, alhamdulillah. I've been visiting the Unity Center several times actually during my stay in Michigan, even after that. So Jazakallah khair akhi for taking the initiative and for giving me the opportunity to meet virtually with my brothers and sisters in Michigan.
Wallahi, we're blessed. And the last question is, Sheikh, before you start, how has Jami'atul Huda been going? How are the activities there so the community may be aware of what's happening?
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. We have been operating since 2012. The university is growing. We have 3 different programs in the university. Let me share, if you do not mind, let me share my screen here. Here is Jami'atul Huda. Can you see my screen, Sheikh Muhammad?
Yes, I can see, Sheikhana, yes.
Yeah, this is Guidance College of Al-Huda University. Alhamdulillah, we have Masters in Islamic Education, Masters in Islamic Finance, and Bachelor degree in Islamic Studies, taking the accreditation, the regional accreditation here in the US, as serious as we can. Hopefully, inshallah, in the near future, you will hear the good news that Guidance College or Huda University is fully accredited in the US. This is one of the ways that we can, disseminate authentic and relevant Islamic knowledge, helping the Muslim community, proceeding and preserving their Muslim identity, even like, impacting the American society at large by graduating and just bringing to the society people with knowledge, with proper understanding of their deen, who are able, inshallah, to take the presence of the Muslim community in the US to the next level, inshallah.
MashaAllah. May Allah bless you, Sheikhana, for all your efforts and you just working on Jami'atul Huda, everything you've done for the community. Inshallah, you will eventually see the fruits of your efforts, bi'idhnillah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah bless you, reward you. Our du'as are with you. And inshallah, our community, we advise you to look up Al-Huda University, support Al-Huda University, and of course, through that, you support noble initiatives. Jazakumullah khair, Sheikhana. I don't want to take your time. Inshallah, please, you can start. Barakallahu feekum, Sheikh.
طيب جزاك الله خير. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. سينا ومسا الملك لله، الحمد لله لا شريك له، لا إله إلا هو إليه النشور. سينا على فطرة الإسلام، كلمة الإخلاص، وعلى دين نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم، وعلى ملة أبينا إبراهيم حنيفا وما كان من المشركين. اللهم إنا أمسينا منك في نعمة وعافية وستر، فأتم علينا نعمتك وعافيتك وسترك في الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم ما أمسى بنا من نعمة أو بأحد من خلقك فمنك وحدك لا شريك لك، فلك الحمد ولك الشكر. يا ربنا لك الحمد كما ينبغي لجلال وجهك وعظيم سلطانك. رضينا بالله ربا وبالإسلام دينا وبمحمد صلى الله عليه وسلم نبيا ورسولا. Respected brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. وطبتم وطاب ممشاكم وتبوأتم من الجنة منزلا بإذن الله. ثم أما بعد. The topic that we will be discussing today is like a part of this very long and very detailed presentation called interest-bearing transactions in the US. The very, very particular topic is problematic. There you go. Just trying to. I'm not sure if you can see the PowerPoint, Sheikh Muhammad. Can someone just let me know if you can see the PowerPoint? Okay. The particular topic for tonight that we'll be discussing, as you see here, is problematic riba-based transactions. Problematic riba-based transactions, and under it we have a lot of outlines: bank loans, marginal accounts, reserve mortgage, pawnshop business, inheriting prohibited money, borrowing prohibited money, credit unions, loan issuance, fees, payment plan, letter of guarantee, factoring business, debt collection business, and check cashing. Let me just start with something that I do believe it is important, which is to define riba. Whenever we say interest or usury or riba, what do you mean by it? Maybe you have heard a lot about riba al-fadl and riba al-nasiya and riba al-nasa. Sometimes actually we get confused whenever we hear these terms. Let's just keep it simple, straightforward to the point. From now on, whenever I say riba or interest, I mean the following: the premium, certain amount of money or percentage, premium that must be paid by the borrower to the lender, along with the principal amount. You borrow $1,000, you pay it back $1,100. $1,000 principal, $100 premium or extra money, either as a condition for the loan, which means that you have to agree from the beginning that you will be paying certain APR, certain percentage or lump sum as an interest. This is one scenario. Or the other scenario, or for an extension of its maturity. Extension for its maturity. Like, for example, when you borrow interest-free loan, or what we call it sometimes qardun hasan, interest-free loan. However, upon the maturity of the loan, if you default in paying the principal in full, you will be charged extra money. So that extra money, that riba, is stipulated one, is conditional one. If you default, you will pay it. If you do not default, then you just pay the principal. So this is actually the riba that I'm referring to. The premium that must be paid by the borrower to the lender, along with the principal amount, either as a condition for the loan or for an extension of its maturity. That is the definition of riba. Something that is also important to take into consideration here, that in the Islamic finance system in general, we do not care about the terms or the terminology people might use in contracts, okay? Because it might be easy to manipulate the rules by just changing the terms in the contract to make it looks like as if there is no riba involved in it, while the reality or the essence of the transaction is that there is someone borrowing money from somebody else, and that borrower has to pay back the principal plus interest. So what we look for actually is the essence and the reality of the agreement, or the spirit of the agreement, and not the wording or the terminology. And that's why our fuqaha already set a very straightforward فقه maxim or قاعدة فقهية. They say العبرة في العقود للمقاصد والمعاني لا للألفاظ والمباني. What matters in transactions is the essence and reality, not wording or formality. So again, we do not care about what is written in the agreement. What we care about is the essence and the nature of the agreement. If we navigate through that agreement, that someone is giving money to someone else, right? And that money is guaranteed, like the lender or the advancer, if you wish, the one who gives the money is not taking any kind of risk whatsoever. Okay, that transaction is a riskless transaction. He gives 1,000, he receives it back $1,100. If that is the case, then this transaction is riba, thus prohibited, even if it is called, okay, or labeled as otherwise. Why? Because العبرة في العقود للمقاصد والمعاني لا للألفاظ والمباني. What matters in transactions is the essence and reality, not wording or formality. Having said that, why we call this presentation problematic riba-based transaction? Because in certain transactions it might be confusing a little bit. Some people might get lost, might not navigate the rules of riba or discover the rules of riba clearly in a certain transaction. That's why it is problematic. Back to the presentation, what are the problematic transactions that we need to discuss here? Let's go with the first one, which is the bank loan. Okay, bank loan actually means any bank loan. means any bank loan, as long as you know from day one, that the principal will be paid with premium, with extra money, according to the definition of riba that I just shared with you, whether that extra is a fixed amount or variable, okay, rate, fixed rate or variable rate, it does not make any difference. Whether that interest is a simple one or a compound one, where the interest is added up to the principal and then riba is calculated on the total of the previous interest and the principal. That's called compound interest. It does not make any difference, as long as you know from day one that the principal you borrow from the other party will not be paid back as is. There is an extra charge, okay, or premium that has to be paid on top of it, okay, then that is the interest-bearing loan. So do not get confused. And regardless of the reason behind the loan that you apply for, whether it is a personal loan or business loan or investment loan or student loan, all are the same. By the way, this does not mean that borrowing money for higher education purposes is prohibited. I'm just here setting default and basic rules. Okay, if you know that you have to pay back to the lender more than what you have taken, then that is commonly known as a bank loan or interest-bearing loan. Thus, has to be avoided because it is prohibited. What do you mean by marginal account? If you do have a business in the stock market, one of the options, of course, you have a lot of like platforms to invest in. There is something called the 401k 503b for those who work for non-for-profit organizations. You can open a brokerage account. You can open a simple investment account. You can open individual retirement account, whether the Roth one or the regular one. Let's focus on the brokerage account. Why I'm picking on the marginal account, itself? Because it gives you the privilege or the ability to open an account and to tap on the resources of the broker that you invest in the stock market using his or her own platform. In a very simple language, if you open a margin account, right, or a brokerage account, okay, and you deposit actual $1,000, that's an actual real money, your broker, the one who supervises what you do in the stock market, the one whom you are utilizing, using his platform for investment purposes, will be giving you the privilege or line of credit 99% more than what you have deposited. So if you started your investment with $1,000, you will be having a line of credit up to $100,000. So that's 99% extra. This is just the digital money that you can use, for trading, for buying and selling. Of course, the profit is yours, and the loss actually will be incurred by you. The broker does not take any risk whatsoever. Rather, actually, you pay him money for utilizing his money. You pay him money for using his money. To keep it very simple, I'm not saying that brokerage account is prohibited. No, it is not. But if you leverage, if you have a marginal account, if you use that service by utilizing the money of your broker, you borrow that money from your broker, to accelerate and to leverage on what you have, then that is actually the risky area that you need to stay away from. Let me just read for you what is written here. Brokerage account in which the broker lends the customer cash to purchase securities or currencies. Okay, this is on papers that you borrow money from your broker, the one who opened the account for you. The loan is in the loan in the account is partially collateralized by securities and cash. So from the broker's side, there is nothing to worry about, because actually he has the control over everything. Whenever you default, he can just take over the account and get his money back. Because the customer is investing with the broker's money rather than his own, the customer is using leverage to magnify both gains and losses. I mean, this is a preference for some investors in the stock market. And instead of just like working in a very low profile, only $1,000, why do not you just jump from $1,000 to $100,000 $1,000. You see? So all what you will be gaining as a profit is yours. Allah forbids if there is a loss, then you are exclusively responsible for the loss. What kind of concern we have when it comes to marginal account, or if you have a brokerage account, yet you borrow from your broker, that's commonly called as marginal account. Number one, there is no actual transfer of money, which means that your broker offers you digital money, just numbers on the computer. You just go ahead and start your business, but there is no actual money transfer, like tangible, real, fiat money transferred from his account to your account. It's just a line of credit that he gives you. This is number one. Of course, transacting with someone's with something one does not possess is prohibited. You need to own, you need to possess the money first, and then you can deal in it, you can trade in it. Prophet ﷺ said, "La tabi' ma laysa 'indak," do not sell what you do not own. So you cannot trade in money that you do not have it. It's not in your possession. Number two, the broker charges the investor money for the right to borrow money. Of course, this is not a free money. Okay, if you want to borrow, then you have to pay and this is actually a straightforward interest-bearing loan. What you take, as long as you have to pay it back with the premium, as I already explained in the beginning, that premium or extra is the interest that you try to avoid. So this is a loan that brings benefit to the lender. And there is a well-known fiqh maxim or قاعدة فقهية: كل قرض جر نفعا للمقرض فهو ربا. Any loan that brings or derives stipulated benefit to the lender is riba. And in this case, again, the broker actually is lending you money, even if it is not called in the agreement or the contract or even in the industry, in the stock market, even if it is not called or well known to be a loan, but in reality actually it is a loan. Why? Because the broker does not take any risk whatsoever. The broker offers you certain amount of money, digital money. You are fully responsible for that money. That's a riskless transaction for him. You pay the principal that you have borrowed on papers, okay, plus a premium. That premium actually is riba. And the third reason is bay'atani fi bay'ah. Those are like two simultaneous transactions in one. As if the broker is telling you, listen, if you open a brokerage account with me, I will lend you money. If you open an account with me, I will lend you, I will give you a line of credit 99% more than what you have already deposited. And it is well known that نهى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم عن بيعتين في بيع. One example or one application of this hadith is this particular scenario. If you open an account with me, I will be giving you a line of credit. So because of those three different reasons, actually, marginal account is not permissible. You definitely have the right to open a brokerage account. However, you have to limit yourself to the actual, tangible, real, halal money that you already deposited in your account. Moving on. Home equity conversion mortgage, commonly known here in the US as reverse mortgage. Reverse mortgage is a very simple concept. If you are a senior citizen and you do have equity in your house, okay, the house that you have been paying its mortgage for 20, 25, 30 years, even if the house does not have a clear title, as long as you have a minimum amount as an equity, let's say 100,000% more or less, then you do have the right to borrow money, cash money. Again, if you are a senior citizen, you can borrow money from the mortgage company, that you are still dealing with, and that's why it is called a reverse mortgage. So instead, if you're borrowing from the company and paying principal plus interest, now you are taking your money back. Okay. Now, what is the collateral here? Collateral actually is the house that you own, or at least your equity in the house. So it is a secured loan and not an unsecured loan. So referred to as reverse mortgage, type of loan for senior citizens in the US allows them to take an interest-bearing loan. This is actually what we care about here. I mean, forget about all these technicalities, who is lending, home, whether this interest is a compound interest or a simple interest, okay, whether it is for 20 years or I mean, all these technicalities are not within our concern here. What we care about, what we are trying to navigate here, is whether or not this transaction is an interest-bearing loan. And if you read here clearly, type of loan for senior citizens allows them to take an interest-bearing loan. That's it. So case dismissed, as they say. That's an interest-bearing loan that does not exceed their equity. Okay, if your equity is 100,000, maybe you can borrow up to let's say 75,000, because the rest actually will be an interest you have to pay. So this loan is taken out by the borrower as a monthly payment until he dies or decides to sell the house. If you, Allah forbid, if you pass away, then the mortgage company will take over your equity and get their money back after your house is sold. Or otherwise, if you decide to sell your house during your lifetime, then the loan will be unsecured, right? Because in the beginning it started as a secured loan. Okay, they have like full control on the equity that you have in that particular house. Of course, as long as this loan is an interest-bearing loan, then case dismissed, as they say. I mean, this is an interest-bearing loan, and it's not an option. Borrowing haram money. Can you borrow money from someone in which his or her source of income is purely haram? Someone who works for a mortgage company, someone works for conventional bank, someone's like core business, okay, main business is like liquor business, someone involved in adult entertainment, a winery, business, whatever is purely well known as a haram business, haram job, or haram career. This is not the question. The question here, if that money is haram, if his earning is haram, can you borrow from him or not? That's the question. The answer actually is yes, because what you should care about is the nature of the deal or the transaction or the agreement between you and him. At the end of the day, here you are just taking an interest-free loan. Interest-free loan. If that person committed a sin, he or she will be responsible, accountable for his sin. But the unlawfulness of the money that he has in his possession is not transferable to you, right? Is not transferable to you. الحرام لا ينتقل إلى ذمتين. الحرام لا ينتقل إلى ذمتين. The unlawfulness status, okay, is not transferable from one individual to another. I mean, again, this is another fiqh maxim here. الحرام لا ينتقل إلى ذمتين. He gained that one in a haram way. He is liable for his, for his money. But when you borrow from him, just make sure that you take an interest-free loan and not an interest-bearing loan. So it is allowed to take an interest-free loan from a person with wealth from unlawful sources. Unlawfulness of wealth only relates to that individual and does not extend to others. This is actually what our fuqaha mean by saying al-haramu la yantaqilu ila dhimmatain. The unlawfulness status is not transferable from one individual to another. This might be strange or a weird issue for some of us. Is there any evidence for that? Yes. The Prophet ﷺ used to transact buying and selling and trading with the mushrikeen in Mecca al-Mukarramah, with the mushrikeen in Mecca. And he did the same when he migrated to Al-Madinah with the Jewish community. And it is well known for all of us that the mushrikeen, the polytheists in Mecca al-Mukarramah, and the Jewish community in Medina used to deal with interest, right? Al-Yahud wal-Mushrikeen, they both used to deal with, I mean, this is for fact. And it was never reported that the Prophet ﷺ has refrained from transacting with anyone before asking where did you get your money from, whether or not your money is halal, because he was focusing on the nature of the agreement between him sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the other party. If the agreement or the business or the nature of the agreement is musharaka, for example, or just an interest-free loan, or just simple trading, buying and selling, then the Prophet ﷺ used to proceed with the transaction without even asking about the source of money of the other party. And based on that, borrowing haram money is permissible. Not only that, even inheriting haram money is permissible. Inheriting haram money, of course, as long as you did not, like you as a legal heir or as an inheritor, if you did not approve, or you did not participate, or you did not facilitate that haram investment of the deceased during his lifetime. Say that someone during his lifetime was working in like liquor store. That is straightforward haram business, right? The question here: what is the status of his estate or wealth after his death, right? Can his wife, his parents, and his kids inherit that money or not? Before we answer this question, we need to ask: did any of the legal heirs or inheritors participate, facilitate, get involved in, had hands on that business, working with the deceased or not? If the answer is yes, then that's a different direction, different fatwa. Let's go with the assumption that that person, that deceased, okay, did not consult with anyone of his parents or his wife or his kids, and he was just having a business, haram business, without consulting with anyone. His business is haram, but the wealth actually that he left behind is his wealth. The wealth that he left behind is his wealth, and there is no legal owner of that money other than him during his lifetime. So upon his passing, upon his death, that ownership of the wealth is transferred by default automatically through the mirath, or the inheritance system, and then in the Islamic inheritance law, is automatically by default the ownership actually is transferred to the legal heirs or to the waratha. However, this is not something agreed upon, to be transparent and to be honest with you all. According to the predominant opinion, that yes, al-haram la yantaqilu ila dhimmatayn. Okay, whatever he or she gained during his lifetime, that is his fault, that his responsibility, his sin. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will hold him accountable for that. But that unlawfulness status is not to be transferred from him to others. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, كل نفس بما كسبت رهينة. كل نفس بما كسبت رهينة. Every single soul will be responsible for its own gaining. So I'm not responsible for the deceased who invested his money in a haram way. Upon his death, the money, during his lifetime, the money is his, right? He did not extort the money. He did not steal the money. He did not take the money by force. The money was not embezzled. This is his money. He was conducting business, haram business, but legally speaking, the money is his. So upon his passing, that ownership is transferred by default to the legal heirs. So inheriting haram money is permissible. Did I mention anything else here? The inheritors, okay. Why inheriting haram is halal? Let's just elaborate more on this issue. In Islamic law, prohibited ownership does not transfer in such an inheritance transaction. Again, al-haram la yantaqilu ila dhimmatayn. The wealth accrued through interest does not have a clearly entitled party. Again, that person actually used to be the legal owner of that money during his lifetime, and that ownership upon his death is transferred automatically to the next generation, to his kids and to his parents and his wife as well. So the prohibition would be upon the collector of interest and would not extend to the inheritor. Of course, this is if the money is an interest based money, or money like came from gambling, or came from again, like any haram business like adult entertainment or winery or tobacco. business, anything that is purely well known to be, to be haram. Is it preferred to stay in the safe side? Of course, make no mistake about it. But actually, our presentation tonight is about fiqh, about haram and halal, about fatwa, not about taqwa. And there is a huge difference between fatwa and taqwa. Fatwa actually answers the question: is this okay or not? Is this halal or not? Okay. Taqwa is completely different. Taqwa is like, talks about, piety and righteousness and staying in the safe side and staying away from doubtful matters, leave aside, prohibited matters. So to answer the question, is it preferred to be in the safe side? The answer is of course yes. Especially if the legal heirs of the deceased are like well off, financially, stable. What the deceased left behind is not that big amount of money. Then I would rather say just stay in the safe side and dispose that money. Do not take it. All of the fuqaha say al-khuruj min al-khilafi mustahab. Avoiding areas of scholarly difference is recommended. But again, we're not discussing here what is recommended. What we're discussing here is the haram and the halal issue. Of course, there are some exceptions here. Okay, if the number one, inheriting something that is inherently prohibited due to its substance, there's something called haramun li wasfihi and haramun li kasbihi. If someone left behind, liquor store, right? This is haramun li wasfihi. I mean, khamr is khamr. It cannot be permitted because the owner of the liquor store passed away, so the khamr is halal for the legal heirs. This is incorrect, right? Because the prohibition is an intrinsic prohibition. It is haramun li wasfihi. I mean, khamr is still haram, right? Versus something else called haramun li kasbihi. Okay, if the wealth is taken unlawfully, that's a different issue. So my point here is that whatever is haramun li wasfihi, whatever is inherently prohibited due to its substance. Someone passed away, left behind liquor, okay, wine and beer, and okay, I mean that's haram. That cannot be excused or cannot be inherited. So it must be disposed. However, if what he left behind or the deceased left behind is haramun li kasbihi, okay, a kind of wealth that is taken in a haram way, right? However, it was not like upon a mutual consent between him and others. It was not a kind of gambling or not a kind of riba, like he used to lend money with interest, okay, and people used to give him interest out of their own consent. No, we're talking about extorted money, embezzled money, stolen money, okay. If that is the case, then yes, I mean, although al-haram la yantaqil ila dhimmatayn, but that money that he left behind does have some legal owners, and that money has to be paid back to its legal owner. So by any means, as you see here, of theft or robbery, or as long as there is a party clearly entitled, then that money cannot be inherited. المال المسروق لا يورث. المال المغصوب لا يورث. المال المختلس لا يورث. It has to be like given back to its legal rightful owner. Pawnshop business is another confusing and problematic business. Why? Because when you borrow money, you take a secured loan. I mean, you have to give the owner of the pawn shop business, you have to give him something as a collateral, right? If you want to borrow $100, then you have to leave your phone that's worth maybe more than $100. You give it to him as a collateral, and then you take the $100, right? Now, some people get confused because this is a secured loan. They think that it's halal. No, it's not. No, it's not. For those who do not know what does pawn shop business mean, it's a secured loan in which the borrower pledges an asset as collateral to borrow money. You cannot take money and just go. You have to put something as a collateral. Now, the agreement is to pay a fee or interest. This is actually our concern here. This is what we're exactly looking for. Is the money that you take from the pawn shop business Is it an interest-free loan or interest-bearing loan? 99.9% to my knowledge, the money that you take is an interest-bearing loan. If you take $100, you have to pay it back 100 plus. That plus is the premium that you are referring to. That plus is the interest which is prohibited. So the agreement is to pay a fee or interest even if the loan is paid off within a certain period of time. If that is proven, then pawnshop business is prohibited for you as a Muslim, as an owner of that business, and as a borrower. So you cannot lend, you cannot borrow. Why? Because this kind of loan is an interest-bearing loan and not an interest-free loan. If the borrower does not pay off the loan, the lender may seize the collateral. That's the difference between borrowing from a bank versus like borrowing from a pawnshop business. Most probably those who go to pawnshop business and borrow money are disqualified people. They cannot borrow from banks either because of not having a proper governmental ID or not having a social security number or whatever the reason might be, or they might not have any credit history, or maybe bad credit history. So whatever the defect might be, at the end of the day, they just refer to pawnshop businesses to borrow money. In order for them to proceed, they have to pay something as a collateral, right? If you pay the 100 in our example back, then you will be getting your phone, okay, done. However, you have to pay on top of the 100 extra amount of money. That extra amount of money actually is the riba that has to be avoided. What's the difference between when it comes to credit history and reporting to credit bureaus? Here is the difference. However, defaulting on a secured loan does not negatively affect the borrower's credit report. If you borrow from Bank of America or Chase and you default, they get a report to the 3 different credit bureaus. You will be having bad credit. But if you do the same, if you borrow money and you just disappear, pawnshop businesses cannot report to credit bureaus. That's the only difference. What is the fiqh status of the pawnshop business? Well, this is an interest-bearing loan. Now, if it is proven, if and only if it is proven that a certain pawnshop business gives an interest-free loan, then borrowing money from that particular shop would be allowed. Most probably, it's not the case, to my knowledge. However, I might be mistaken. Rotating savings and credit association. Rotating savings and credit association, commonly here known as ROSCA, like an abbreviation for rotating savings and credit association. What do you mean by ROSCA? It's a group of individuals who agree to share their wealth for the sake of peer-to-peer lending. Okay, I got my first degree from Al-Azhar University from Egypt, and this system is called Jam'iyya. Jam'iyya means Jam'iyya, like a group of people who make a gentleman agreement to give a certain amount of money, like identical certain amount of money, by each one of those members in this Jam'iyya to the first individual for the first month. And then in the second month, they give the same amount. They give the same amount to the second individual, the third month to the third individual, and on. So they rotate the money between them. You can call it a stipulated gift. You can call it interest. I'm sorry. You can call it loan, but there is no like interest involved in it. 5 individuals, each one of them pays $100 to A, and then the second month they pay the same amount to B, and then to C, D, and E. So you will be receiving $500. Okay. If you are the lucky A, right? And then after that, you have to keep paying back $100. You receive $500, you pay $500, so you break even. I have heard a very conservative opinion regarding ROSCA from one of the fuqaha, actually, Sheikh Muhammad al-Hassan Wald al-Dadu. Maybe some of you actually know him, the Mauritani scholar, mashallah, tabarakallah. I have heard him talking about this issue, and he said, no, you do benefit from the loan because you get the money at once, $500 in our example, and then you break it down to 5 months. Every month you pay $100. So that's a kind of gain, kind of benefit. 500 one time you take it, and then you break it down to 5 payments, each one $100. Oh, that is qardun jarra nafan. This is actually a loan that brings benefit to the lender. With all due respect, I disagree with the sheikh. As long as there is no explicit riba involved in it, then again you receive 500 and you pay in 5 months $500, okay, as if you are borrowing 500 from your Muslim brother in your community, with an agreement that you're going to pay him back $100 each month. 100, 100, 100, 100, 100. You're good to go. You borrowed 500, you paid back 500. Honestly, I do not see any problem with it. Credit union, that's another confusing issue here, because everybody knows, at least here in the US, that الاتحادات الائتمانية, credit union, is a kind of financial cooperative. Is a financial cooperative in which the credit union is owned and operated by its members. Okay, credit union actually is a bank. Credit union is a financial institution that offers the same services as just traditional bank. The only difference here is that in regular banks you have shareholders and you have customers. You have shareholders and you have customers. So there is a clear conflict of interest, as they say, right? The shareholders want to make as much profit as possible, and the customers actually want to make want to keep the benefit of the shareholders to the minimum. So there is a conflict of interest. But when it comes to credit union, it's not the case. Every single shareholder is a customer. Every single customer is a shareholder, and that's why we say it is operated by its own members, and it is actually a closed organization. No, like intruder can just come from outside and join the credit union. No, you have to be a member in that credit union in order for you to benefit from its financial services or banking services. So it's owned and operated by its members, offers financial services to members only, closed organization. More prevalent in the US than ROSCA, which is the case, of course. Since the owners are also the customers, there isn't any conflict of interest. Again, you are the owner of the bank, and you are the customer of the bank, and each one of us in the credit union is the owner of the bank and the customer of the bank. So there is no clear conflict of interest, as they say. Some people think since the credit union is a financial cooperative, it doesn't have to be a non-for-profit organization. No, it is actually for-profit, but again, it's a cooperative in nature. There is no clear, straightforward conflict of interest in it. Some people think, well, since we are a group, we just cooperate, we keep our resources together, we say we mutually serve one another, then it should be halal. Well, unfortunately, it's not the case. The fact that the credit union is a financial cooperative does not mean that every single service provided in this credit union is a halal one. Okay, there is no connection between the two. So none of that would excuse the interest-bearing transactions that credit unions offer. Here is the issue. If you want to take a loan from your credit union, are you going to take 1,000 and pay it back 1,000? If the answer is yes, go for it. If the answer is no, then you are borrowing money with interest. And that's why, if you remember, I just said that I do not have any issue with the ROSCA as long as it is an interest-free loan. If you still remember the example that I gave, you take 500 and you pay 500. Well, it's not the case, unfortunately, when it comes to credit union. You take 500, you pay $600. Of course, 500 plus, regardless of the extra money. So there is another fiqh maxim here, which is al-wasailu laha hukmu al-ghayat. Al-wasailu laha hukmu al-ghayat means are given the same ruling the same ruling as the ends, which means that if you want to cooperate and you want to show cooperation and benevolence and help and support to the members of this credit union, Jazakallah khair, that's a very good spirit that we need, we need to keep within us as a community. But this does not mean that every single service offered within that credit union is halal. Al-wasailu laha hukmu al-ghayat, means are given the same ruling as the ends. It's now on my side, Sheikh Muhammad, it's 6:52, and I have to limit myself to only 1 hour. Let's keep the remaining 8 minutes for question and answer, if you don't mind. Inshallah, we'll continue next week. Employer loan, third-party loan, loan issuance fees, payment plan fees, Sharia compliant contracts, partnership with those who have haram sort of income, working for those who borrow money with interest, creating liquidity or tawarruq, different from bay' al-'ina, okay, ruling of bank tawarruq, letter of guarantee, okay, and factoring business, debt collection, and that will be it, inshallah. So I'll see you inshallah next week with the rest of the sub-subjects, inshallah. Sheikh Muhammad, fadal.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. That was very, very informative. Thank you so much. It really sparked some important questions based on the principles that you kind of laid out. Oh, by the way, assalamu alaikum, my name is Safwan. I did my undergraduate degree in physics and business. So there was actually some relevant questions that I had, as well as I think most people kind of my age and older have related to some of the principles you had laid out. And I think the biggest one is related to house mortgages. I know that you laid out that even if something is written as not being interest bearing, but it is still at its fundamental level interest bearing, that is impermissible. Something that's confusing to some of us is that here in Michigan, there's two kind of banks that provide Islamically compliant mortgages, and these mortgages have fatwa that are given by one of them is by Mufti Taqi Usmani, and the other one is by Mufti Abdullah Nana. But something that's confusing is that these mortgages still have like a profit rate, and they still have kind of the same things that feel very similar to interest. You're getting basically a profit rate that is based similar to what you would get in the market for an interest rate. And actually these loans are underwritten by mortgages themselves. So the bank will take out a mortgage and then they'll write the contract with you, and that's how they're backing the mortgage they're giving you. Could you go into a little bit of like why these are specifically compliant? Because something that I've found to be difficult is when explaining to someone that this is a better alternative than a traditional mortgage, they say, well, underneath it's the same exact thing. I don't see how it's any different. And at the principle, it's still interest, it's just more expensive.
Yeah, I just posted on the chat bar here the link that takes you to the declaration of our fiqh council called AMJA, the Assembly of Muslim Jurists of America, Majma' Fuqaha al-Sharia bi America. We did actually discuss this issue in depth a while ago, and we came up with a conclusion. It's a very long and detailed topic. I'll just try my best to keep it as simple as possible. Those companies, those so-called Islamic mortgage companies, they deal in the secondary market, which means that they sell their products or their contracts to Freddie Mac and to Freddie Mae. So they are like Freddie Mac compliant more than to be a Sharia compliant, because without complying with the standards of Freddie Mac, they cannot sell their contracts. They cannot liquidate the money, get their money cash, and just go back to to the next victim or to the next customer, right? So as long as we understand the system, very well, that those companies do deal in the secondary market, and they have to prove to Freddie Mac that that what they sell is just a traditional, straightforward mortgage agreement and not anything else. As long as they can make a case in front of Freddie Mac that there is no risk involved in this transaction, as long as they can proceed. But if Freddie Mac actually finds that, oh, this is not within the mainstream practice, there is some risk involved here. The mortgage company, for example, is responsible for the maintenance. mortgage company is holding the title as an owner, not as a lien holder. The mortgage company is responsible for the insurance, for the tax, for the maintenance. They would say, you know what, you are by your own. Sorry, we cannot, buy those contracts from you. That's why actually, I make a joke that those Islamic mortgage companies are Freddie Mac compliant more than to be Sharia compliant. Are they really Sharia compliant companies? To be honest with you all, no. As simple as that. There is a severe incompatibility between the Islamic finance system and the riba-based finance system. In the Islamic finance system, it has to be proven that the Islamic mortgage company, whether they go with the murabah style, like they buy cash for 100 and sell it back to you for 150. That's called murabaha, like cost plus they call it, right? Or they go with lease to own. Okay, they buy the property, they lease it to you, and then they transfer the deed to you. Or they go with the diminishing partnership. Okay, they buy the property jointly and they start leasing their share to you and selling at the same time. Whether they go with the murabah or with the ijara or with the musharaka, it has to be proven that those companies do own the property prior to proceeding with selling or renting or partnering with the other party. Unfortunately, in many cases, it's not proven. It is not proven at all that those companies do own, the property. Consequently, they do not take any risk whatsoever. Even if there is a risk, it's very nominal, very, I don't want to call it fake, but it's very trivial, very nominal, very unreal. So I cannot believe that an Islamic mortgage company deals in the secondary market, sells its products to Freddie Mac, that they still own the property and take the risk, thus justify the profit that they take, because the Prophet ﷺ said, Al-Kharaju bil-Daman, profit follows liability. If you want to make money, then you have to take some risk. Those companies do not take any risk whatsoever, with very, very, very few exceptions. Very few exceptions, where the whole out is barely. Okay, since you mentioned names here, University Islamic Financial, and the other one is
Guidance Residential.
Guidance Residential is slightly different from UIF. UIF, University Islamic Financial, is just a traditional bank, and the subsidiary, which is the University Islamic Financial, is just a subsidiary of the bank itself. So they operate as a bank. And here in the US, banks are not allowed to assume actual real ownership of property, because their job is to finance, is to lend money with interest, right? Not to own property. I mean, they are not real estate agents. They are just banks. They give you more money and they take back from you money. That's it. I mean, this is their job, right? Guidance Residential is slightly different, because they operate in the US as an investment company, not as a traditional bank. So by the law of the land, they do have the right to own the property. Guidance Residential does have to register LLC, and that's why, like, if you read the contract, there's $18 every month LLC fees, right? That LLC is a small derivative, okay, a small entity from the mother organization, which is Guidance Residential, and they put their name as an owner of the property. Unlike UIF. UIF actually does not assume any ownership, and that's why, according to AMJA, our fiqh council, we really doubt that UIF and Devon Bank, they do conduct a Sharia compliant. And we said that Guidance Residential is barely acceptable for those who want to own homes. If guidance is not an option for some reason, or you are disapproved by them, or you disqualify, then you may consider UIF or Devon Bank. We did not dare saying that dealing with UIF and Devon Bank is haram, because they claim that they have a kind of murabah, that they close in the property and they sell it back, but in reality, actually, it's not the case. By the way, in this link, if you read it, it's written in Arabic and English. By the way, we already indicated that two more companies that are well known in the US, La Riba and Ijara Loan. Ijara Loan is not a Sharia compliant, is not at all. La Riba is not a Sharia compliant at all. So you are left with three options: guidance residential, number one. If not, then UIF. If not, then D1 Bank.
I got a question from someone.
Yes, sir.
I got a question. Shaykhana, someone sent me a question after when you spoke about haram businesses. When people were when the government legalized marijuana, you have many people here in Michigan. Of course, you know how big Michigan is, and if we have many warehouses. Is it permissible to rent out warehouses for recreational marijuana? Because they pay 4 times to 5 times the rent. That's one question that I received.
Wallah Karim, if it is proven that marijuana is prohibited fiqh-wise, then any kind of any kind of involvement and any level of involvement in marijuana could be prohibited. But the question here, even within the fuqaha themselves, is there any clear agreement? I don't want to call it ijma'. Let's say just agreement that marijuana is extremely prohibited, whether smoking marijuana or just taking the oil or using marijuana for medical treatment purposes. To my knowledge, even within the fuqaha, it's not something that is agreed upon. And I highly consider the opinion of my colleague, Dr. Hatem Al-Haj, because he's a medical doctor and faqih at the same time. I had that conversation with him a while ago, and he, replied, as I said, I mean, that's not something that is, clear. It's not like intoxicant, or liquor or wine. Still debatable within the atibba, within the doctors, and still debatable within the fuqaha based on the disagreement of the fuqaha. So if something is not obviously clearly prohibited, then we cannot say that any kind of involvement in that business is prohibited. It's all about the status of the marijuana itself. Is it haram? If the answer is yes, then anything related to marijuana should be haram. If not, then it's not. But I would highly recommend Muslims, especially practicing Muslims, to stay far away from anything related to marijuana. It's the least we can say. It's a very doubtful matter.
Basically, it's not like owning a liquor store.
What's that?
It's not like owning a liquor store.
Oh, of course it's not. No, it's not. I mean, liquor store is clear.
Yeah. I'm just saying. So you can't draw a line of comparison.
Right.
Afwan, the other question?
Yeah. So a few more. Sorry, I don't know how much time we'll have.
I'm available.
One that I think was very prominent, that came to my mind right away once you said that transacting with something that one doesn't have is impermissible. So a lot of people will take out a credit card, and on that credit card, they will pay the payments before any interest is accrued. But that money is money that they're borrowing and paying, and then they're paying at the end of the month before there's any kind of interest on it. So they're paying the full balance. Is that permissible, or is that impermissible because you are transacting with money that's not yours and then paying it back at the end of the month?
No, there is difference between using money that you do not own versus money that you do own, or like in your possession, but you borrowed the money. If I borrowed money and I received the money actually is mine. Okay. I can use that money for whatever I want. Not only that, if I borrow, let's say $10,000. Okay, for whatever reason, the loan might be, and I just keep that money with me for one complete year, one lunar year. Okay, according to the Shafi'i school of thought, which is the one that I generally follow, I have to pay zakah on that money, although I'm the borrower, but actually I kept that money in my possession for one complete year. So based on that, if you open a credit card and you borrow money from others to pay off your credit card statement, that would be fine, especially if your intention is to like like to avoid interest, that would be fine, because in this case actually you are using money that you possess, you own. You take the money and you pay it. So that's
right. So, sorry, I was gonna say, when you take out a credit card, isn't it that the credit card company is paying on your behalf, and then you will pay them back at the end of the month?
As I said in the presentation, there is a default rule and there is an exception. The default rule is that a Muslim is not supposed to borrow money with interest, is not allowed even to agree to pay interest. See what I'm saying? Now, when you open a credit card, it means that you are borrowing money. So all the rules and the restrictions of the loan agreement are to be applied on the credit card. Is that correct? Because when you hold a credit card, it means that you have a certain line of credit where you can borrow money of others. You borrow money from Chase and then you pay them back. Opening, like having credit card, is not strictly prohibited. It's not haramun lidatihi, because the terms of the agreement are very clear. Okay, if you use your credit card for purchasing purposes, right, and you pay your credit statements in full before the end of the cycle or the month, then there is no interest, as long as you avoid using your interest for cash withdrawal, right? As long as you pay in full before the due date, then you can use your credit card for years and years and years without paying one single penny as an interest, right? Only and only if you default in paying on time, or if you paid your statement partially. Okay, you owe the company 1,000, you paid only 800. It means that the 200 remaining has to be paid back with interest, right? If you use your credit card for cash withdrawal, then you will be charged interest. Some companies charge you interest if you use your credit card for international transactions. You live here in the US, if you want to make a transaction in Pakistan or Saudi Arabia, they consider it as if it is a cash withdrawal. So you need to be careful. Okay, if that is the case, then you cannot use that particular credit card for international transaction. When you do any international transaction, you will be charged wire transfer fees, which is fine. I mean, someone is wiring the money on your behalf from the USA to overseas. So this is actually a service. So they deserve some money for that service. And they charge you a currency exchange charge, because they do currency. I mean, they do currency exchange from American dollars to whatever, you know, the local currency there. So they make some profit, which is fine. If they do consider the actual amount withdrawn or used by you as a cash withdrawal, okay, then you cannot use that particular credit card for international transaction. So you need to be careful here. What is the status of opening credit card? Basically, you are not supposed to hold a credit card, because once you hold a credit card, it means that you are willing, you gave your consent already to pay interest in case 1, 2, 3, right? And I mean, you are not supposed to do it. However, this kind of haram is not as strictly prohibited as being really involved in riba. Again, I mean, you can just use your credit card for years and years without paying interest. Okay, and in fiqh terminology, they call it haram li ghayri, prohibited for its potential consequences, right? Because there is a legitimate and public need for opening credit card, especially for Muslims in the West, right? Then opening credit card is permissible, is allowed. However, you have to make sure that you limit yourself to the halal transactions and not the haram ones. Do not use a credit card for cash withdrawal. Do not use it for international transactions if they charge you interest. Pay your credit statement in full, pay it before the due date, and just keep using your credit card safely without paying interest.
I received a question, Safwan, before you go with the other questions that are listed. I may not fully understand the question, Sheikhana, but he's asking about paying interest to oneself. And he gave the example of 401k. So you take a loan, and then if you pay interest on the loan that was taken, you're still paying it towards your account. So I'm not sure if the question was asked right.
Yes. I mean, if you do have a retirement account, 401k, in order for you to take money, to withdraw money, from your 401k, you have two options. You can either withdraw money, and that is the taxable money. If you decide to withdraw, you will be charged tax on the spot, right? If you decide to borrow money from your 401k, then this money actually is not taxable. This money is not taxable. So I would say the vast majority of people who prefer to take money from their 401k, they do not withdraw money. They borrow money from their 401k. And consequently, they pay interest. They pay interest. But the question here from a fiqh perspective, am I really borrowing money? I mean, if I'm the owner of the 401k, whether that money is my money, like my deductible, if you wish, and the match of my employer, right? Whatever is in my 401k is my money, right? Whether it came from my side or from my employer's side. I mean, this is my money. So when I borrow money from my 401k, technically speaking, I'm not borrowing money. This is just a legal like tax evasion, technique, right? I mean, it is legal. So if you borrow money, it means that you take money from your 401k. There is no loan to start with, right? And whatever you pay as an interest is not an interest, because it will go back to whom? To your account as well. So borrowing money from your 401k actually is permissible. Paying interest, for this so-called loan is permissible, because العبرة في العقود للمقاصد والمعاني لا الألفاظ والمباني. What matters in transactions is the essence and the reality, not the wording or the formality. And in this case, you are not borrowing money; you are just using your own money. Now,
I had one more, and then there's a few in the comment section. The one that I had was about life insurance. So a lot of companies in their benefits packages will automatically give life insurance. It's not something that you opt out of, or it's not something that you kind of like gain anything from not having. So in the instance that is kind of someone dies and that's paid out, what should the family do? Is that acceptable money to take? Is that going to be sinful on the person who was automatically given that life insurance policy? Should the family not take it because of that reason? Or how should that be handled?
Right. And I still remember a few years ago, I was a guest speaker in your masjid. And one of the topics that I touched on was the life insurance. Sheikh Muhammad is laughing. So at that time, actually, I was going with the mainstream opinion of the vast majority of the fuqaha that life insurance is prohibited. But to keep it like short and simple, there is actually a mainstream opinion, and there is otherwise. The mainstream opinion, which is the opinion of the vast majority of the contemporary scholars, is that they do differentiate between the government-based insurance, mutual insurance from one side, versus commercial insurance from the other side. They do believe that any kind of government-based insurance is permissible by default, because it has a lot of cooperation and benevolence and mutual support to one another. The contract is not for profit. عقود التبرعات, the government is not aiming to make money from its individuals. Any kind of government base, whether Social Security or Medicare or Medicaid in the US, that's halal by default. Any kind of glitches or violations of the rules of contracts in Islam could be overlooked, because the cause is noble. We want to support one another, right? Based on this mainstream opinion, any kind of commercial insurance, whether car insurance or house insurance or business insurance or life insurance, is haram by default, because again, according to the mainstream opinion, because this is a for-profit agreement, or they call it عقود المعاوضات. I was actually holding and adopting this opinion maybe for 30 plus years. A few years ago, I went back to the book of Sheikh Mustafa al-Zarqa, the Syrian faqih, the Hanafi faqih, who passed away I think 20-25 years ago, rahmatullah alayh. He was one of very few scholars who used to believe that insurance as a concept, as a system, is a halal by default. He used to say that there is nothing called Islamic insurance versus non-Islamic insurance. Okay, insurance is an Islamic concept. The main goal of the insurance is to keep the financial damage to the minimum. When someone actually faces unfortunate incident, and instead of paying hundreds of thousands of dollars, he would be just pay the premium and will be receiving a certain, a big amount of money that will take care of the financial calamity that he is going through. According to Sheikh Mustafa Zarqa, rahmatullahi alayh, any kind of insurance, whether government-based or mutual-based or commercial-based, is a bilateral agreement and not unilateral agreement. Bilateral agreement means two-sided commitment. Okay, whether you're talking about life insurance or you talk about Social Security. Okay, it is a bilateral agreement. Bilateral agreement in a sense that if you pay your premium periodically on a monthly basis, for example, you will be entitled for a certain compensation whenever a certain incident happens, right? If you do not have account with the Social Security, and Allah forbids, you just passed away, Social Security Administration will not give your wife and your kids money because you were like good individual during your lifetime. It doesn't go this way, okay? Because you did not have an account with them. You did not pay your premium, right? Social Security Administration here in the US is telling you, give me $100 a month. Give me $100 a month. And if you pass away or if you become disabled, do not worry. I will take care of your family members. I will take care of you if you are still alive. I'll take care of your family members if you already passed away. I will pay your wife such and such amount until the age of, okay, and your kids until they reach the age of, and like everything is clear and well known from the beginning. Life insurance company is telling you, give me $100 a month, okay, and do not worry, Allah forbids, if something happened to you, I will take care of your family, right? I will write them a check of $1 million. So the concept is the same. It's a bilateral agreement, okay, with the Social Security, bilateral agreement, two-sided commitment with the life insurance. If you pay the premium, you are entitled for a certain compensation, okay, whether you are talking about Medicare or Medicaid or Social Security. If you pay the premium to the life insurance or to the health insurance or to the house insurance or business insurance, then you are entitled for a certain compensation whenever a certain event happens. And then the Sheikh raised the question, what is the difference between this one and this one? According to him, you either prohibit everything, or you permit everything. And he was with the opinion that life insurance is permissible. Any kind of commercial insurance is halal by default. Of course, I mean, that opinion of the Sheikh back in the 70s and the 80s of the last century was a very isolated, very weird, strange opinion, and some scholars, harshly criticize Sheikh Mustafa Zarqa. When I read his book, rahmatullah alayh, I read it just a few years ago. I read it word by word, sentence by sentence, and then I read it twice for the second time. And subhanallah, I found out that this Sheikh rahmatullah alayh was very, very advanced in his vision and his understanding of the nature of the agreement of insurance. And I follow Sheikh Mustafa Zarqa by saying insurance is halal by default. It's not haram and then permitted because of need. No, it is halal by default. You can have life insurance, you can have health insurance, whether like through your employer or you do it by yourself. Business insurance. I mean, there is no restriction whatsoever, with very, very few exceptions. When it comes to whole insurance, for example, insurance companies give you three options. Okay. If you go with the minimum payment, I'll give you just hypothetical numbers. If you pay $100 a month, okay, you will be receiving what is called the insurance benefit, which is, let's say, $1 million, right, upon your death. If you decide to pay $150, you will be getting the insurance benefit and cash advance, okay, which means that like one check, $1 million, another check, they pay you back the premium that you paid during your lifetime. I do not see any issue with option 1 and with option 2. If you decide from now to pay the insurance company $200, you will be getting, upon your death, you will be getting the life, the insurance benefit, the cash advance and interest on the cash advance. I would say that option 3 should not be an option. I mean, because this is the straightforward interest. But option 1 and 2, are permissible. To recap, insurance is halal by default. الأصل في المعاملات الإباحة. أصل في المعاملات الإباحة. Life insurance is permissible, allowable. I would highly recommend Muslims, especially those who live in the West and in the US in particular, to have their own life insurance in addition to whatever insurance they get from their employers. We live in a society, you are literally by your own. Okay, you should not wait, Allah forbids, until something happens and then the community like raise fund or do fundraising for your family members. Why you put your wife and your kids in that position? Just go ahead and get your life insurance. And if you can bring me like any significant difference, okay, fundamental difference between the system of Social Security and life insurance, I might change my mind. But to my knowledge, they are the same. Bilateral agreement, premium versus benefit. If you pay the premium, you get the benefit. If there is no premium paid, then there is no benefit. They are the same, and they both are permissible. Wallah.
I'm not sure if you remember, but first time I brought it up is we were in MJ in Chicago, and I remember I walked and I gave you salam, and I asked a question, and I said, Sheikh, if there's anything you can do, if this fatwa can change, it has to be through you. This is way before you presented this issue in Unity Center. So just to let you, I'm not sure if you remember, but it was in MJ in Chicago.
Wallah, I don't know. I mean, what I remember is MJ.
I don't remember about this time.
Nah. But this is my position that life insurance is permissible by default.
Nah. Safwan, the questions that we have presented, so we can summarize before we finish off.
Yeah, so there's a few. One was asking about if cashback on credit cards was okay, and if that is considered passive income or if that's considered some type of interest payment that you're receiving.
No. Yeah, if you remember, we said كل قرض جر نفعا للمقرض فهو ربا. Any loan that brings stipulated benefit to the lender will be counted as interest. Now, when you use your credit card and you get some cash back, right? You borrow $100. Because of the cash back, you pay Chase or Bank of America $95. So you pay less, you do not pay more. If you, as a borrower, if you borrow 100 and you pay it back 105, more or less, then that's haram, right? But if you pay, if you borrow $100 and you pay it back only 95 or 90 or 93, then you are benefiting. So if the borrower is the one who is benefiting, that's completely the opposite of riba, which is of course halal.
Okay.
If you have any problem with the cash back, I mean, I can take it.
And then the second question was trying to understand. I think she was trying to understand how we can kind of deal with these principles of riba in like an inflation-based society. So because there's inflation, and because the borrower is automatically going at a loss by giving you money and then having to take that money at a future date in terms of the depreciation of that wealth as well as opportunity cost, how could you potentially even have loans without having interest as principal?
That's another long topic. However, I'll keep it short. First of all, Akhil Kareem, loan is not a mode of finance. Loan is not a mode of finance. If I know that someone is asking me for $100 to upgrade his business, for example, or to establish a new business, I would say, with all due respect, sorry, I will not give you my money, right? Because it's very, very unfair. Why should I give you interest-free loan, 100,000, right? You use my money, you make a business, you make a profit, and then after 2 or 3 years, with a lot of inflation, right? A reduction in the purchasing power of the money, you give me the $100,000 after 2 or 3 years with a big hug and jazakallahu khairan, right? This is very unfair, right? So loan is not a mode of finance. Okay, loan is to be given for cooperative purposes, for charity purposes, if you wish. If I know that someone is asking for $10,000 to do a surgery or to pay for the rent of his apartment or to buy food for his family members, he's desperate for the money, I would give him the money, right? And I anticipate none but the reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? In the matter of fact, in the hadith of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, lending the money twice is equivalent to donating money. So lending money to support other people is a devotion by itself. Now, a part of the devotion is to incur some loss because of the inflation. Here in the US, like in particular, the inflation is not more than 100% a year, right? So if I give $10,000 and I get it back after 1 year, after 2 years, I mean, no big deal. Because when I advance the money to start with, I gave it for the sake of Allah, right? And I anticipate none but the reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I do not have the right to ask for the difference for the inflation. Because the contemporary fiqh councils are unanimous that ad-duyunu turaddu bimiqdariha la biqimatiha. Loans are to be paid back by their exact amount with the exact currency, not by their purchasing power, if you wish, right? So the inflation has to be incurred by whom? By the lender, not by the borrower. Are you following up with me, Safwan? Right. It's not the case, akhi, if the inflation is a severe one. Okay, someone before the civil war in Syria gave somebody else 1 million lira Suri, right? That was back in 2011, 2012, right? And the market value or the purchasing power of a lira Suri now, after 7 or 8 or even 9 years, went significantly down. So I would say maybe the inflation is 90%. This is 90%. Oh, that's a different discussion. Hold a second. I mean, this is something abnormal, right? Some of the fuqaha, including Sheikh Abdullah bin Bayy, like one of the very advanced fuqaha, he said that if the inflation reached 33%, 1/3, if the inflation reached 33%, then this is something very, very abnormal. And in this case, the loss has to be shared between the lender and the borrower. And of course, actually, he does have some evidences for that. That's called نظرية الظروف نظرية الجوائح ورفع الجوائح. According to the hadith of the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام, أمر النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم برفع الجوائح, which means that if there is something very, very abnormal, very unexpected, natural disaster happened, okay, both parties actually had nothing to do with the disaster that happened, right? If that is the case, then the loss actually has to be shared between the lender and the borrower, right? I'll give you a practical example. I gave someone $1,000, 1,000 American dollars back in 2012, okay, and in Jordan or in Syria, okay. Now because of the inflation there, the market value of the 1,000 went down all the way to $500. Are you following up with me? Okay, the 1,000 went down to $500. So the inflation or the loss is how much?
It's $500.
Okay, that $500 is way more than 1/3. Then in this case, right, we have to split the loss between me and the borrower. Okay, 250. So he has to pay me the $1,000 plus 250. Why? Because the inflation is way more than 1/3. I do adopt actually this opinion, and I'm await for our fiqh council for AMJA to come up with an official position regarding when the inflation is like a very excessive one, right? Like way more than 30% or 33%. But this is my personal opinion for the time being until it is adopted by AMJA, inshallah. No.
So as a follow-up question to that, this is always something I've been curious about, if this might be a solution to that, or something that might mitigate that someone might be hesitant to lend to someone because of interest. If someone was to lend in a currency that is deflationary, for example, the Japanese yen is something that will increase in value maybe like 3 months from now, 4 months from now, 5 months from now. And it's like one of the only currencies that will do that. But I lend someone, 100 Japanese yen, and I say, I have no problem doing that because I know when they pay me in the future, that same 100 Japanese yen will be worth more relatively than it is now. Is that like a permissible way of thinking about it? Or could that even be done with like an asset? Like, let's say I have gold, or let's say I have, a sukuk or something like that, that I know might appreciate at a reliable rate, and I can foresee what that reliable rate is. And then I lend someone a fixed amount of that and get back that fixed amount in the future.
Currency wise, I would recommend the American dollars. It's very very strong, very stable. Of course, unless Donald Trump wins another term, that's a different discussion. No politics, please. Okay. But American dollars is good enough. It is safer actually to lend gold. To lend gold. Okay. Do not give cash money. Buy gold, like pure gold ounces, and give him 10 grams, give him 1 kilogram, and ask him to pay you back 1 kilogram gold, right? Whether 18 or 21 karat, whatever the detail might be, because gold actually does have an intrinsic value. Okay, it does not depreciate whatsoever. So if you, if you are like really afraid that the inflation might be significant, then just give gold and receive gold. Give gold and receive gold. But if you want to deal with currency, I would say for the time being, American dollars are safe enough. Maybe Japanese yen is stable as well, but the American dollar actually is good. Okay.
And then the last question was asking about annuities. The different types of annuities that you have: immediate, deferred, fixed, and variable, and specifically when they're attached with an investment portfolio. Are these permissible or non-permissible?
To my knowledge, are you talking about annuities?
Yeah.
To my knowledge, all of them are just straightforward saving accounts. Okay. The profit is a fixed one. The profit is guaranteed. Whenever the profit is fixed and guaranteed, then this is haram. Even if it is called the profit, even if it is not called interest, at the end of the day, it is interest. Because interest, as you already explained the very first minute of this presentation, the premium that has to be paid by the lender to the borrower. By the way, if you open a saving account, there is no difference between annuity and saving account. Saving account is not an option because your principal is guaranteed, and your return on investment, whether you call it profit, you call it revenue, you call it dividend, you call it interest, call it whatever you want, right? Your principal that you deposit in Chase or Bank of America is guaranteed by the FDIC, and the return of those money is guaranteed as well. Well, this is an interest-bearing transaction. You lend your money to Chase, right? And that's why opening a saving account is not allowed. Annuity actually is identical to my knowledge, unless it is proven. I mean, your major is in finance. If you can show me that a certain annuity does not guarantee you the profit, does not guarantee your principal, then it should be like any other investment. But if the principal and the profit, both of them or one of them, is guaranteed, then by default this is an interest. This is a riba-based investment, and thus not allowed. No.
Safwan, thank you for mashallah.
Thank you so much. That was so informal. I mean, informational. Sorry.
Sheikh Ma'an, Dr. Ma'an, jazakum Allah khair. Allah yahfadak, we barak feek. May Allah reward you for giving us some of your precious time. And we look forward to listening to you again next Friday, inshallah. At 7. Allah barak feek.
That will be a pleasure and honor, inshallah. And I look forward to see you, inshallah, next Friday. Jazakumullah khair. Thank you for the opportunity to meet virtually with your community after a while. Jazakumullah
khair. Thank you so much. And everyone, please look up and AlQudah University, Guidance University. Remember them in your du'as. Support them, please. share their links and benefit from their knowledge, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair, Shaykhana. We'll see you, inshallah, next Friday.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.